get ready for the patch notes rundown. Okay.
Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, back with another patch rundown, the patch 14.13 rundown, and this is the last competitive patch. This is the patch that a lot of regional championships will be played on, and the final championship will be played on. So this is it. We've reached the end of the competitive split, and so a couple changes here. The meta overall really, really good. There is a lot of playable lines. There's 2 cost rerolls. There's 3 costs. There's 4 costs. A lot of playable lines. So it's not a very large patch, but we do want to make a couple adjustments.
Man, I'm getting more dogged again
as we head into those championship before the final patch. So let's jump right in.
Well, one thing I want to say about this patch, by the way, that we just played is also multiple styles are more viable as well, because it's not just like is 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, 4 cost playable in Fast 9, but it's also can you play like 80 in AP? Can you play win streak or lose streak? What are different things that you can do? Rolling on 6 is back in the meta, and that's a good thing. That's generally because of certain reroll comps are really high tempo, but that does add more dynamic to lobbies. So I think that's a big win of the patch. That stylistically, there's a lot more things on the table. That's not to say it's perfect. I still do believe that 80 is a little bit too weak on the default side. If you have the conditions correct for all the AD comps, like if you have the right augments for Ashe, if you have the right setup for Kai'Sa, you can play things like center reroll. Like there's 80 lines optional to you, but it's not something that you can feel comfortable playing if you get a open generic spot, where let's say you open triple combat augments like Martyr, tons of stats, that kind of stuff, and you're like, what do I do? And I have 80 items. That's the spots that they need to improve a little bit. So let's see if they do that at this patch.
First off, prismatic orbs are now more likely to drop. Now, keep in mind, when we say more likely, we're talking like 1 in 1,000 became 1 in 500. Those aren't the exact
so twice
numbers,
in a tournament.
The point is, they're still very, very rare.
Yeah, sure.
But, right now it was like people were just never seeing them. So we do want you to see them occasionally. So they've gone up a little bit. Again, still very, very, very rare. Golden item remover. This has been a popular, cool thing. We made a small quality of life change here. If you have a golden item remover, or you get one, all existing item removers on your bench will instantly become reforgers.
Okay.
And if a player would gain a new item remover, they'll instead gain a reforger. So again, this is just that small quality of life where you're like, I already have one. Even though it's free, it feels bad. So at least you get a little something. This should bring a little more smile to your face. Good stuff.
Man, that's a buff to the augment, the golden remover. Man, that one becomes even more fun to pick. I'm starting to think Dishsoap was right that they should put a golden item remover augment at gold tier as well, and like make a gold version of it just so you can pick it more often. It's a fun augment. A huge buff. Yeah, like you just get more reforgers. That's infinite removers and reforgers.
On the trait side, Faded, definitely the most consistent line. Not necessarily the best line, but definitely the most consistent. And we've seen the Ahri Syndra pairing just give it a ton of damage. So we're lightly tapping that specific pairing. The Ahri AP bonus is going to go from 30 to 27, and the Syndra damage bonus amp going from 11 to 10%. So
when he says not the best, does he mean like not peak power?
But just that one nerfed a bit here. So that's going to bring down the spell power of that Syndra line a little bit, that Faded Dryad.
Pretty sizable nerf.
And again, it's generally been the most consistent line. So maybe it'll need to find a new pairing. We'll see.
Because well, first of all, this is usually times whatever the Faded bonus is. So yeah, 5 Faded gives you the whole team buff, but if you play 7 Faded, it's also impactful as well. This is the base number of what it was at, wasn't it? Then they buffed it to 11. So Syndra was always at like that 10% range. So it looks like that's kind of going back to earlier. Also, I'm curious, like when he says like the most consistent line versus the best line, a lot of players in their mind define the best lines as the most consistent lines because you can play it and get expected results versus, I guess he's talking about like the peak power level. Like Syndra Faded will lose to like a capped artifact combo board, or like maybe peak, like maybe if a hero augment gets like the right condition or something like that. I guess that's how he's defining it. Or if you like play like high roll Lily or something like that, because like the peak end of that comp is like really insane.
Ink Shadow Vertical, basically we don't see this very often, so we're going to buff this up a bit. The damage amp and damage reduction of 5 and 7 Ink Shadow is going to go up. Cool.
Okay.
Sniper.
That's across every unit.
Ended up being a mistake. It kind of pushed Sniper right back out of the meta. Shows how fragile our game is when 1% can make this big a difference. But
Small
Sniper,
per
we're basically
hex.
undoing the nerf from last patch.
Per hex.
So it's going to go from 8/17/33 to 8/18/35.
Okay. So Ash, they're rebuffing. Wait, they actually did what Disho asked for. Disho asked to revert the nerfs, so they're just reverting nerfs on Sniper. But I feel like this is fine. Like basically, vertical Sniper wasn't that good anymore, and the reason why is because 6 Sniper becomes like a glass cannon build, and so when you play 6 Sniper, you give up a bunch of frontline, and so if you play 6 Sniper, the trade-off wasn't worth it because the damage that you shifted your entire dynamic from being like keep your frontline strong and then like ramp up damage over time to like trying to bully them as fast as you can with 6 Sniper. So I think that makes sense. The 4 Sniper is probably just because the mid game of it was really weak, and Ash it's like very, very small. But also I think the meta also became less favorable because more melee came into the mix, and melee with like Yone dash into the back line and stuff like that makes it so that snipers have a little bit of a harder time. Versus the previous meta was like, a bunch of like Lilia and Syndra. So it's like backline versus backline. So it's a little bit different. So the meta has kind of shifted. It's not just like a numbers thing. It's also like what became better. And then also Lux became more meta. So Lux is giving snipers a big problem. If you have like a cornered unit, Lux will target it. So yeah, just like this all just kind of makes sense. And kind of goes with what Mort's saying, which is like very delicate balance has made it so that they didn't even have to nerf snipers that hard.
But Sniper, we're basically undoing the nerf from last patch. So it's going to go from 8/17/33 to 8/18/35. On the champion side, this is the only champion change in the entire patch.
What?
Kaisa buff.
Okay.
Cool.
So Kaisa and Ash got buffed.
We want Kaisa to be able to get that spell off a little bit more often.
Yeah.
So Kaisa should help AD lines as well. If you
better
get
for
that
Shojin,
start,
right?
I imagine this is going to make Fortune pretty strong in the competitive scene. But this should help Kaisa get that second cast, hopefully. And again, open up some new lines in the meta where trick shot can be viable. So
also makes like build different. Maybe Kaisa's the unit to play around as well. But it's a reasonable buff. I think the flat AD buff is like pretty bad because of the Fortune. But hey, I mean, you guys wanted Kaisa to be more viable, so it is what it is.
Pretty big buff,
maybe
though.
Fortune is busted.
We'll see what it does. On the item side, Cursed Blade. It came, it saw, it was still buggy. It's gone again. Cursed Blade, bye.
They just
Some
gave
will
up
miss you, others won't. Otherwise, a few artifacts that are still underperforming a little what we'd like.
Great.
Luden's Tempest is going to get 5 more AD and AP. Prowler's Claw is going to get 10% more
Man,
AD.
I'm getting more dogged
and
again.
Rapid Fire Cannon is going to get 15% more attack speed. So at this point, Rapid Fire Cannon's a lot of attack speed alone.
So
you might
much
even be
attack
fine
speed.
putting this on a backliner just for that big burst of attack speed. So again, just buffing a few artifacts that need a little more love compared to the rest.
Poof, bro, thank you for the 4 months. Man, I'm glad this never became a thing. This is one thing that I'm glad came out severely underpowered. They buffed it, stayed under power, and then they said instead of buffing it again and making it unfun, because listen, you're like, oh, hero augments are so lame, but imagine if Cursed Blade just becomes a thing, and then all of a sudden your entire game gets hard countered because someone just encountered into a Cursed Blade, and now your Garen 3 just doesn't work anymore. Your Yorick 3 doesn't work. Your Nico 3. Like this item is toxic. I never wanted to be good in the meta, and I'm glad it's not. So, Luden's Tempest, this is generally on the weaker side. So that's a nice buff. Prowler's Claw is a little underpowered, so that makes sense. And then ours. I mean, these are all like things that make sense. I guess we'll just see. Like this is a huge attack speed buff. 15%, that's a 25% stats buff. Like, surely it can't be that bad, right? Like, you just take this and just becomes like a mana item now.
You might even be fine putting this on a backliner just for that big burst of attack speed. So,
yeah,
again, just buffing a few artifacts that need a little
Rapid
more
Fire
love
Cannon
compared to
Shen.
the rest.
Okay.
On the augment side, Silver Ticket now grants 3 gold. Cool.
Oh.
Built
Wait, that's a
different,
lot
still
of gold.
underperforming from where we'd like it, so it gains more health.
That's a lot of gold.
It is up to 50 health by the end, so this should help build difference late game pretty well.
Wait a second. I don't think they needed to buff this.
And some hero augment
Hold
nerfs
on a
here.
second.
Ethereal Blades going to do 15% less damage amp here. Pretty chunky nerf for Ethereal Blades.
That's a very big
it got
nerf.
buffed from the Behemoth bug fix, so
that's a very big nerf because of the fact that Shen might have the unit might survive. So then Shen has to like auto back and cast again and then kill a unit, which slows down killing really quickly. So that's a pretty big nerf. Do they really need to buff build different? I think it's actually in a pretty good spot. Maybe they want it to be played more often, but the stats on it says it's like a 4.5. So it's like, I don't really think it needs to be buffed.
Should come down.
It's probably going to be
Storied Champion also gets 5% less ability bonus true damage. Again, light nerfs. I don't imagine this knocks these out of the meta, but maybe in the pro players' hands, it's not, you know, a 40% first place rate. So hopefully this brings those down.
Yeah.
And then Mulched has been underperforming for a bit, so it's going to get 3% of its damage amp back.
If you watch China, they actually first pick Mulch really often and reroll Gnar. That was last patch. I can't imagine anything changed this patch. So they were doing it. Maybe they don't do it as much this patch because China was playing their tournaments on the old patch. So while we were playing Tacticians Cup 3, they were playing their regional LCQ on 14.11. This is 14.12 that we're on. This is 14.13 that we're looking at the future patch. They were playing on 14.11, and they were first picking Mulch and re-rolling it, even though the stats were bad. So maybe something to think about.
And that's kind of it. Like that's the patch.
Oh.
So again, not a lot here. There will be one more patch afterwards for bug fixes here. Reapers will no longer keep the ability to critical strike their abilities after the trait has been deactivated.
Tattoo fixed.
And this is a nice Ink Shadow one. Tattoo of Protection now properly shields based off the unit's maximum health at the time of casting. So again, for
apparently this does work. By the way, you just have to unfield it and field it back in.
Not wildly shifting the meta here. You should be able to know everything that you had practiced, and it shouldn't wildly change. And then one more thing here for those of you that are enjoying Pengu's Party. We're really happy you're enjoying Pengu's Party, but we do have a few changes for you. Coven is going to get buffed. The 2-piece Coven is going to gain more AP, and both are going to gain more mana.
Okay.
Imperial 2 is going to be able to buff another unit.
Okay.
Mascot 2 is going to have way more base health regen.
Okay.
Socialite 1 and 2 are going to get buffed. More damage amp, more omni damp.
Okay.
Excuse me. Trainer gets a bit of a buff and a nerf.
Whoa.
The buff here is that if
Green
Namzi's target dies
Namzi
during cast, we'll choose a new target.
That's
so no
huge.
more fireballs shooting off to the distance.
That's huge.
But Namzi's burn damage was actually doing 2% from back in the old days instead of 1% like it's supposed to. So now Namzi's burn does what it's supposed to there. And then finally Yordle. Yordle definitely the easiest to play line. Yordle is going to require 6 3-stars now before you can start making Vagars.
That's so many.
And those Vagars are going to do 10% less spell damage.
Oh,
so
God.
If you can still get Vagar 3, it'll still be powerful. Cool. But, you know, when players are hitting 2 Vagar 3s in the same game, it's probably a bit too easy.
Too easy.
Yordle has been nerfed. And there you go. This patch comes out Wednesday. And then just so you know, it is a 3-week patch with the Riot Summer Break happening the first week of July.
Wait, actually, that's good because it's the final. That's good.
Patch, which should be our last patch.
It's good timing.
Sometimes you guys often dub it the For Fun patch. So there should be some cool changes there. And then our next set heads to PBE. So that'll be fun. We're almost there. It should be exciting. Reminder, I may not be able to do a patch rundown for the next one, as for the month of July, I will be moving. I'll do my best. You never know. Maybe I get lucky and things are set up early.
Bye, Mort Dog.
Probably
bye.
not. Don't count on it. So
see you never.
All right, there you go. Good luck to all the competitors. Good luck at your regionals and your Worlds finals. Can't wait to see who comes out on top. Should be exciting. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.
Yeah, my dad said he was going to be right back because he was moving, and then look what happened. Still waiting all these years later. All right, solid spat. I think we give a round of applause like we do at the end of the patch to thank Mort Dog, but also I think set 11 in a pretty good spot, all things considering. Kind of rocky there in the middle. Yeah, it could be a little better, but like, listen, they're buffing exactly what people said, and like, I think the set as good as it gets, and it's definitely in a better spot meta-wise than set 10 was in terms of where we are in the set. One set ago, we had Heartsteel, Superfan reroll, and then like these random niche lines, and that was basically what was played because like everyone, as you know, Disco was a giant meme back in set 10. Like Pentakill, KD Akali was like a vertical spat thing only. Oh, I guess you could play like vertical 8-bit if you hit an emblem for it. Ari Sentinels wasn't really a thing. I guess vertical KDA was kind of a thing. There's a lot of things that were just kind of like unplayable. Like people weren't really playing like EDM and things like that. Oh, Executioner. I mean, that's like a reroll line. You know what? That's okay. This set was so good. I'm actually going to overlook it because it was so good. Yeah, never mind. It's all good. Balance was terrible, but it was a good time. I love me some set 10.